Good evening, hello and welcome. You're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Anusha Soni. Uniform Civil Code. It's part of the idea of the welfare state under Indian Constitution. It's a directive principle of the state policy, which means that the state must steer in the direction of the implementation of a uniform civil code. The adoption of the Indian Constitution on the 26th of January 1950 came with an artificially created distinction. While there was one code of criminal law that was applicable to the entire country, the domain of personal laws pertaining to marriage, divorce, inheritance, etc. was left under the cloak of personal laws. Personal laws, for example, the Sharia law in the Muslim community or the church-made canon law for Christians was protected under the customary practices. The Hindu personal law was freed from the clutches of religious code through a Hindu code bill, and subsequent codification process was done for various communities, including the Christian and the Parsi community. The legislative work done has been piecemeal and patchy so far. The outlier in the process of codification is the Muslim personal law. Yes, there are some legislations that exist, but the law is largely customary, even uncodified and archived at various instances. The Uniform Civil Code seeks to harmonize these religious codes. One code for the so-called ambit of personal laws. Well, the task is indeed a complicated and a difficult one, but it's a task that must be undertaken. The reform is much needed for any modern democratic republic. UCC is indeed a matter of minority rights. We must talk about it. The rights of minority to development, growth and change. The refusal to bow down to the orthodoxy is a constitutional promise that must be kept. There can never be a consensus on an issue like this. To wait for one would be foolhardy. The Prime Minister has made a pitch for the Uniform Civil Code. It's time that this idea is translated into reality. Our focus on brass tacks tonight.
यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड के नाम पर ऐसे लोगों को भड़काने का काम हो रहा है। आप मुझे बताइए, एक घर में परिवार के एक सदस्य के लिए एक कानून हो, परिवार के दूसरे सदस्य के लिए दूसरा कानून हो, तो क्या वो घर चल पाएगा क्या?
The country needs so many answers from the Prime Minister of India. These all issues to divert the real issues of the country.
प्रधानमंत्री जी, हिंदू मुसलमान का मसला ही नहीं है, ट्राइबल कस्टम्स का क्या करेंगे? विविधता भरा देश है ये। हिंदू धर्म के अंदर ही जितनी विविधता है, आप उसको खत्म कर देंगे।
Why uniform civil code is not applied in Hindu temples? There should be uniform civil code in Hindu temples. They believe that God is for everybody. Then everybody should be allowed to enter.
हम ईमानदारी से मुस्लिम समाज को डेवलपमेंट की तरफ आगे ले जाने की बात न केवल कहते हैं, बल्कि धरातल पर करते भी हैं। और सपा हो, कांग्रेस हो, बसपा हो, इन तमाम लोगों ने केवल और केवल मुसलमानों को गुमराह रखने का काम किया, लेकिन कभी भी मुसलमानों के लिए ठोस काम इन्होंने नहीं किया।
मैं मानता हूं कि यही वक्त है और सही वक्त है जब देश को कॉमन सिविल कोड मिलना चाहिए।
सैद्धांतिक रूप से हम यूसीसी का समर्थन करते हैं। संविधान में भी आप ऐसे देखेंगे तो आर्टिकल 44 इसका समर्थन करती है। कंसेंसस और सबको एक मत में लाकर ही इसको आगे जाना चाहिए।
Well, let's first talk about what the Uniform Civil Code is. You'd hear political statement around it, but what exactly is the idea that the Constitution framers really had when they made it a directive principle of state policy? UCC comprises of aspects of personal law. It's a British-era concept, talking about the personal law and how it existed. The British created this artificial distinction for a smooth functioning of colonial rule in India. The Muslims could govern under their own code and the Hindus could operate under their own Hindu personal law. The Britishers did not want to interfere with the personal religious codes that were prevalent at that time. Once we got independence, Dr. Ambedkar, he proposed a common civil code post-independence during the process of the Constituent Assembly meetings. Now, UCC, it covers aspects of marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption, succession, and various other aspects that concern, quote-unquote, the personal lives of human beings. What is the legal position right now? Let's talk about post-independence, what kind of laws have existed. As I said, Dr. Ambedkar was the key proponent of a uniform civil code. It's thanks to him that we have the Hindu personal law or the Hindu Code Bill that made sweeping reforms in the Hindu personal law. The Hindu Code Bill, talking about it, personal laws for Hindus, Jains, Sikhs and Buddhists, but all these laws have been rationalized and more importantly, none of them right now are in violation with any kind of fundamental rights. The Muslim personal law operates largely on the Shariat Application Act. This is to protect the customary practices amongst Muslims. In other personal laws as well, there are various issues that we have seen. There is a longer waiting period for Christians upon divorce if they seek from court. And there are various other problems and anomalies that exist in different aspects of personal law of different communities. Let's talk about what are the problems which are surrounding the Uniform Civil Code. What are the impediments? Now, various personal laws are violative of the right to equality, Article 14 of Indian Constitution. Personal laws also guard patriarchy. They are very discriminatory against women. All these personal laws and a majority of them can be termed to be anti-women, and that is why there is a demand that this should be seen from the prism of a gender equality debate. Various forms of oral talaq under the Muslim personal law have been found problematic, and that is why you had the intervention coming in from the Supreme Court. Even there are certain very disturbing practices like female genital mutilation which are under the consideration of the Supreme Court as some practices which are prevalent in some communities. Marriage of minor girls, which is prevalent in Muslim law, which is allowed per se in Muslim law, is something that has been hotly debated and contested. As I said earlier, what is hindering the Uniform Civil Code? What are the challenges that lie in the way? And I specifically want to refer to the earlier report of the Law Commission under Justice B.S. Chauhan. That report spoke about the special protection that has been given to various northeastern states. Land inheritance rights for the tribals cannot be at par under the Indian Succession Act and various civil laws that exist. There is also the legal protection to local customs and laws that has been given under Part 3 of Indian Constitution. There are matriarchal tribes that have different rules of succession, and all of that need to be accommodated under the concept of diversity. There are various judicial precedents that protect personal laws. The various, the infamous case of Narasuappa Mali that says that fundamental rights and personal laws, they cannot be tested against each other, especially the essential religious practice. That's one aspect that the Supreme Court and the judiciary has guarded. Now, that's largely about the Uniform Civil Code, the ambit, the problems and the key issues that come in the way. But despite these issues, reform is a process that any society should undertake. And that being said, is it time that India should take a leap and make that directive principle of state policy a reality? Joining us on the broadcast is Mr. C.R. Keswan, who's the national spokesperson of the BJP, Adil Hassan from the AIMIM, Amber Zaidi, who's an activist, Sumaya Rana, who's a national spokesperson from the Samajwadi Party, Amana Begum Ansari, who's a policy analyst, is also joining us on the broadcast, and Yasmin Faruqi from the SDPI. Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Adilji, I want to come to you first, and I want you to set the debate. As I argued in my show, when I'm very clear in my head that when it comes to Uniform Civil Code, it is less of the issue of minorities, but it is also the issue of equality. Article 14, which should be given to all men and women. Various personal laws are highly discriminatory in nature, and that is a task which is forbidden under Indian Constitution. I want your view. Adilji.
My leader, Barrister Asaduddin Owaisi Sahib, very categorically explained everything in his press conference that it is Hindu Uniform Code. Mr. Modi wants to set up one frame of all the community. In India, in every 50 kilometers, we change our language, we change our dress, we change our fooding habit. In Northeast, cultural rights are given to Nagaland people, Mizoram people. I want to ask BJP that what BJP will do on 341. It is in the Hindu dhobi, they get the reservation, whereas the Christian dhobi, the washerman, and the Muslim washerman dhobi, they don't get reservation. This is the discrimination which Mr. Modi talks about pasmanda, but his government filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court that now Muslim dhobi and Christian dhobi can't get the SC status. I want to ask the Honorable Prime Minister, why not any pasmanda? Why not any pasmanda MP or any Muslim MP in his cabinet, minister in the cabinet, any Muslim MP, any pasmanda MP in BJP? Why not Mr. Modi rewarded Arif Mohammad Khan, say Najma Heptullah, Firoz Baz,
I'll come to you. One at a time. One at a time. No, not this way. Not this way. Amaraji, I'll come to you. Yes.
Let me speak.
Yeah.
Sayyid Shahnawaz, Sayyid Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, he not given any space to the Pasmanda Muslim. Aligarh Muslim University, Kishanganj not getting a single penny. 40% minority budget decrease. Madrasa modernization scheme stopped in Uttar Pradesh.
One can go on a monologue. One can go on a monologue and talk about various issues on which you want to criticize the BJP. Rightly so. You are a political opponent. You should do that. My issue that I'm discussing here on Brass Tacks tonight is the Uniform Civil Code. So I will once again pose a question. Do you think that under the Hindu Code Bill or the Hindu personal law that exists at this point in time, which also governs the Sikhs, Buddhists and Jain, is there any traditional school of law which is prevalent right now? Or perhaps modern secular laws have taken the place? There is no Hindu law per se which can be applicable to the entire country. For that matter, it's a secular set of civil laws which govern the lives of the majority community, which have been reformed for decades. So this entire argument that Hindu law is going to be imposed upon India is rather, I believe, an archaic and an absurd argument to make in the first place.
Ma'am, it is totally, you think there are 3,000 crore rupees, the Hindu undivided family are getting tax rebate. It is reality in this, it is reality. You go and implement what just now, Shiromani Akali Dal, what you heard from Punjab, that they don't want a uniform civil code. It is Mr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, Pandit Nehru, Sardar Patel, Maulana Azad, they were more wiser to the present politician, present Prime Minister or any of the cabinet minister. Why Mr. Ambedkar post this in directive principle? He did not put in that it will be imposed. It is up to the state to decide, and he told
and
it is voluntary.
And the state
you
is
can't
deciding.
You can't say that you can't. You have to eat. You must just 30 seconds. If you love dhokla, in Hyderabad there is biryani, in Bihar there is litti choka, in Maharashtra there is vada pav.
Are you really comparing that to a very serious issue like a uniform civil code? Ambar Zaidi, I want you to come in. Ambarji, I want you to come in.
Kathni and Karni is different.
No, but we can talk about Ambar Zaidi, do you want to come in? Yes, please go ahead. Make your point.
Of course, he's been how he's been opposing uniform civil code. That is absolutely shameful, and he has been repeatedly, saying the same thing on different channels. I want to start by saying one thing, that as Muslim women of this country, I strongly support the idea of uniform civil code, as our constitution of this country ensures equal right to everyone. Also, uniform civil code is mentioned in part 4th of the constitution, which says the state shall endeavor to secure the citizens uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. And he was also talking about that Baba Saheb Ambedkar, Nehruji and everybody, they all supported the idea of uniform civil code, and they wanted the implementation of uniform civil code in the country. When largest democracy of the world, and as Modi ji repeatedly says that India is the mother of democracy, and in a democracy we don't have at once our constitution ensures equal right, and on the other hand we have provision of personal laws, which is totally against the idea of equality and the right of Muslim women. So, and he also said one thing, that BJP is only using this tactic as a political vote bank or as a political gimmick. And also BJP doesn't give any Muslim a chance to be part of Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha. I want to say one thing, that BJP nominated Ghulam Ali Khatana.
No, but Amber, I know you're making all of those points, but I don't think they are crucial or central to the debate. I'm very clear in my head that today the moot idea is about a uniform civil code. It's a constitutional promise that has been made. There were peculiar circumstances that existed post-partition, and perhaps the constitutional framers wanted to take a cautious approach when it came to the reform of personal laws, and that is why at that point in time that step could not have been taken. But today perhaps our democracy is mature enough to take that step. I also want to bring in Mr. C.R. Keshwan into the discussion. Mr. Keshwan, the charge which is being made by your political opponents is that this is just a poll gimmick for you. The government is not serious on the idea of a uniform civil code. You are only using it because assembly elections are just around the corner, or in the run-up to the 2024 you want to polarize based on this issue. Respond to that argument, sir.
Good evening, Anusha ji, and to all my fellow panelists. Ever since the 22nd Law Commission had solicited views from recognized religious organizations and the public, you have seen a section of these doomsday prophets and these fearmongers, bandying this bogey of uniform civil code and also this cliched, trope saying that uniform civil code when implemented will basically attack the minority interest and it will threaten India's unity. Nothing is farther from the truth. The Honorable Prime Minister rightly said this is a certain section of people with vested interest who are trying to provoke and mislead the people. And the Prime Minister very correctly said, he said, this implementing the Uniform Civil Code will strengthen our national unity by ushering in equality. What the Honorable Prime Minister said reflects the spirit of the Constitution, which was bequeathed to us by our founding fathers and mothers. And it also clearly reflects what the Supreme Court has been making in its observation over time. First thing, let us be very clear. This false, fake, binary which they are saying that it is majority versus minority interest is bunker. It is, this is completely false. What the Uniform Civil Code is about is safeguarding women's rights. It's ending discrimination. It's ensuring the vulnerable are protected and also ensuring national integration. When a just Uniform Civil Code is implemented, you will ensure that gender justice prevails over the parochialism against women. Empowerment prevails over the entitlement, and you will usher in equality over appeasement, which exists now. And they talked about attacking the Constitution and the founding fathers. Anushaji, I just want to say one thing. This is not a political agenda of a political party of us, the BJP or the government. This was bequeathed to us by the founding fathers. When you attack and say this is against the Constitution, you're insulting Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, Sardar Patel, Maulana Azad, Rajendra Prasad ji, everybody, because they ensured that Article 44 existed, and like you rightly pointed out, this was in the immediate aftermath of partition, and it was a very fractious milieu, and they were sensitive about the sentiments around, and they said at a later date it will be done. Now it's 73 years after a constitution has been given, it is the right time, and it will be done. And one more thing I want to say, they talked about the timing, saying that, whenever an election comes, let us look at the history and the Supreme Court's observations. If you say this, you're impugning the intent of the Supreme Court. In 1985, when the Shah Bano verdict was delivered by the Supreme Court, they said UCC is dead. In letter and spirit, it has to be implemented for national unity. Then in 2003, the John Vallamatam case, where it was about the succession rights, they very clearly said the Supreme Court said it's a matter of regret that UCC has not been implemented.
In fact, there are petitions at the Supreme Court of India which have challenged certain facets of the personal law, and a response has been sought by the centre as to when the centre is going to take steps to make Uniform Civil Code a reality. One second. Adilji, a quick response from you, and then I want to bring in Sumaya Rana and other panelists also into the discussion. Yes.
I want to know from the government and the BJP that they are talking about women right. Then Mr. Prime Minister or the Home Minister will go to Vrindavan and they will give the maintenance to the deserted women in the Vrindavan. There are more than 23 lakhs deserted women in the country. They will go to the Sabarmala Mantri women. They will allow the women to enter in the Sabarmala Mandir. The Supreme Court guideline is there. Supreme Court order is there that you have to allow the women in the Sabarmala temple.
One second. I am not going to complicate the debate. One second.
You want to give the women right. Then come to the Bilkis Banu.
1 second.
Give the right to the Bilkis Banu.
Adilji,
come and give justice to the Bilkis Banu.
Adilji, one second. See, the issue of widows in Vrindavan is a serious... the issues of widows in Vrindavan is a serious humanitarian crisis. There is no law in this country that permits the treatment of widows in that way and in that fashion. Secondly, the entry of women at the Sabrimala temple. The Supreme Court judgment is absolutely clear. It is unfortunate that it could not be implemented in the country, but the law of the land is clear. When we talk about a uniform civil code, the law per se in its substance is not clear. That whether customary practices that are violative of right to equality, should they exist in modern independent India or not? And I don't understand what is the allergy if we do away with these archaic practices. I want to bring in Sumaya Rana also into the discussion. Sumaya ji, no, 1 second. No, I have to bring in another. I'll come back to you, sir. I'll come back to you, sir. Sir, I'll come back to you. No, Sumaya Rana right now. Sumaya ji, I want to understand from you, ever since the Shah Bano judgment, which was handed down by the Supreme Court of India, and the eventual subversion of that judgment by the elected government of the day, the regressive within the community, the orthodoxy within the Muslim community has held the reform hostage. And somewhere we see that political parties mainstream this orthodoxy instead of pushing it back. And is your party guilty of that, ma'am? That's a direct question I want to know from you. Sumaya ji. Sumaya Rana, if I'm audible to you, ma'am?
I think it's
Sumaya ji, agar aapko meri awaaz aa rahi hai? All right, we'll just try and connect with Sumaya Rana. I'm not able to get in a word from her, but Amana Begum is also with us on the broadcast. Amana ji, I take the same question from you. The issue of Pasmanda Muslims has also been spoken of. And I always talk of the fact that when it comes to the reform of the Muslim personal law, it is actually the orthodoxy which has taken the controlling position and the driver's seat. The reform that should have come from within the community has not come. And in fact, any judicial or legislative intervention to reform these laws has been strongly resisted. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with you. And I don't think it is only conservative segment of the community which has resisted any kind of reform. Unfortunately, the elite class and the intellectual class of the Muslim, they have not spoken against those kind of regressive practices. I think most of the time Muslim community fails when the people who supposed to show us the enlightened path, who supposed to show us the progressive values, have been failing us badly, because they in their personal life enjoy all kind of liberalism. But when it comes to the community, they keep saying that if any kind of reform will come, or if any kind of changes will come within the Muslim community, basically your faith is under the attack. And based on that entire narrative, they create an entire Muslims vote bank chunk for their own profit, because polarization do help them as well. All the time they want to fight with the, I don't know how to put the word, like somehow. But
Amana ji, you're an educated, well-spoken woman who understands law, who understands the politics. Why isn't that we hear more progressive voices from the community, the voices of women who have been fighting for reform, who have been working within the community? I know of a lot of enterprising Muslim women who have worked within the community to strive for equality. Why don't we hear these voices from within the community?
I believe that those kind of voices always have been there, but we used to not get proper platform. But somehow in this era, when social media is there and you can just speak for yourself, more and more such voices are getting spotted, and the mainstream media is also now bringing them on their platform. So that's why you are being able to hear them. But previously we existed all the time, but we didn't have access to those platforms where we can communicate.
All right. So you agree that perhaps there should be more liberal voices and progressive voices from within the community that should talk. Yasmin ji, I'm coming to you and I want to talk to you about these aspects. I remember having a discussion about the age of marriage within the Muslim personal law, the practice of polygamy and various other aspects. And I'm sure a lot of panelists would argue that it's only a very minuscule fraction of the population that practices, of the Muslim population, which is involved in these practices. And perhaps these practices are redundant in today's day and age. Adil ji, I want to come back to you. Is it not time that we do away with these practices legally? That the Muslim personal law should be codified, written on paper, polygamy or any kind of regressive practices should be legally outlawed in this country?
Ma'am, to be very honest, you go a national family survey is there. It is more child marriage in the non-Muslim community than compared to the Muslim community. My leader, Barrister Asaduddin Owaisi Sahib, categorically in the Lok Sabha, more than 20 times he always raised the issue that give the scholarship to the girls from the Muslim community, scholarship, but you are not giving scholarship. Now the people, he just want Mr. Modi, my humble request that give any Pasmanda Muslim lady to the Raj Sabha or to the ministry. If you want to help the Muslim Pasmanda women, why not you are giving the compensation to the divorcee women from the Muslim community? It is just a lip service from the Prime Minister. He is not giving a single scholarship to Muslim girls.
For your own political purpose?
40%.
Can you please stop?
I am from that community. I am from the Surjapuri. I am from the Surjapuri community. I am from the Simanchal. Surjapuri reservation is pending before the
on the Pasmanda issue, I'll come to you. I will allow you to make an interjection. Adil ji, first make your point, then I'll go to the other panelist as well. Yes, finish your point.
Surjapuri community is a Pasmanda community. The reservation, it is pending before the honorable central government. I want honorable Prime Minister to just release the fund for that, for the AMU Kishanganj, one of the most backward region of the Simansal.
I have patiently heard all your...
Adilji, but he is not giving money to the...
I want to know the intellectual honesty of stalwarts like you who are very vocal from their community in mainstream politics. I'm asking you a very straightforward question irrespective of Prime Minister Modi, irrespective of BJP, irrespective of what political parties are doing. Shouldn't in this country it should be deemed illegal if you marry more than once? If the girl is underage and she is being allowed to be married under any kind of customary practices. Child marriage is illegal in this country. It has been outlawed. It still happens. That's an unfortunate situation. But a law already exists that makes child marriage as an offense. That's the argument at which I am right now. Shouldn't we have a law that makes customary practices of child law an offense, even in Muslim personal law? A straight question to you.
Ma'am, it is clear that in Muslim community it is very low rate of child marriage in compared to the other community. I request you go and do the take out the sample survey from the government of India. It is from
मैं तो आपके तर्क को मानने के लिए तैयार हूँ कि ऐसा ही है.
I never interrupted in anybody. It's not good.
One second, one at a time. Adilji, finish your argument. Amna ji, I'm coming to you. 30 seconds to him, then I'll come to you. आप बोलिए सर, बोलिए अपनी बात पूरी करिए, उनको भी उनकी बात बोलने का पूरा समय दिया जाए. बोलिए.
I just want to say this.
One second. Yes, finish your point. Adilji, finish your point. 30 seconds, please finish your point.
Health Ministry, मैम लेट मी स्पीक. मैम, हेल्थ मिनिस्ट्री का सर्वे है कि मुस्लिम बच्चियों में सबसे कम चाइल्ड मैरिज है, जबकि दूसरे कम्युनिटी का हमने हमेशा, आप इसीलिए तो डिमांड रहे हैं, स्कॉलरशिप मांग रहे हैं.
आपने मेरे सवाल का जवाब नहीं दिया.
शिक्षा दीजिए तब ना
आपने मेरे सवाल का जवाब नहीं दिया. अमाना बेगम प्लीज कम इन. अमाना बेगम
कानून थोपिए ना.
अमाना बेगम अंसारी. Adil ji, आपने अपनी बात बोल दी.
I want to tell कि Adil ji has been speaking for very long for the Pashmanda Muslim community. He should ask why OSC has supported the fatwa against Pashmanda Muslim reservation in the Telangana. So that time we were not Pashmanda Muslim. That time they were not very concerned about our upliftment. But suddenly they are somehow they have been, I don't know how they found a newfound love for the Pashmanda Muslim. Second, there is a difference between social reformation and legal reformation.
Please let her finish a point. I have to go to other guests as well. Yes.
Yeah. We need legal reformation, legal framework where women should get equal treatment. Third thing, whenever we talk about the diversity and culture, make it very clear that we cannot promote subjugation of women under the garb of diversity and culture.
All right.
That's
all right.
3 points.
No, and that's exactly the point that I was making, that legally we need these reforms. Sumaya Rana and Rasmeen Faruqi are back with us. No, I need to bring in other guests as well, sir. One second. Sumaya Rana ji, I want to come to you and I want to understand from you. The question that I asked you earlier, we had a problem with your line. बहुत सारे ऐसे इंस्टेंसेस रहे हैं हिंदुस्तान के इतिहास में, खासकर जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जजमेंट देखा जाए शाह बानो के समय, जिस तरह से एक प्रोग्रेसिव स्टैंड था जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने लिया था, और उस समय की सरकार ने एक फैसला लाया, एक कानून लाया जिससे उस पूरे फैसले को उल्टा कर दिया गया. कहीं ना कहीं जो रूढ़िवादी सोच है मुस्लिम समाज में, उसको राजनीतिक रूप से बढ़ावा दिया गया है और इसीलिए कम्युनिटी में रिफॉर्म नहीं हुआ है. इस पूरे तर्क को आप किस तरह से देखती हैं सुमैया जी?
जी मैं आप पे ही आ रही हूँ. देखिए, मुस्लिम समाज को जो आप कह रही हैं रूढ़िवादी सोच कुछ नहीं होती है. इस्लाम में एक ऐसा मजहब है जिसकी एक शरीयत है और उस शरीयत पे सबको फॉलो करना है. जो मुसलमान है उसको आप रूढ़िवादी कह दिए, कट्टरपंथी कह दीजिए या जो भी कह दीजिए. मसलन इस्लाम में है कि महिलाओं को ढक कर के बाहर निकलना है, अपने आप को ऐसे कपड़े पहन के नहीं निकलने की इजाजत है कि जिसमें लोग आपकी तरफ अट्रैक्ट हो या गलत नजरों से देखें. तो ये एक शरीयत का एक लॉ है. आप उसको फॉलो करते हैं, वेल एंड गुड. नहीं करते हैं तो इट्स अप टू यू. कोई वहां पे जोर जबरदस्ती नहीं है. कोई कोड़ा लेके और हंटर लेके आपको नहीं कहेगा कि यू हैव टू वेयर बुरका या यू हैव टू डू अ वेल. कुछ ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है, कोई लॉ नहीं है. लेकिन जब बात होती है यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड की, मैं एक बात फिर से दोहराना चाहूंगी, पिछली बहुत बार से मैं याद दिलाना चाह रही हूँ भारतीय जनता पार्टी को कि जो मुस्लिम महिलाओं के हक की बात करती हो, जो मुस्लिम महिलाओं को 3 तलाक और यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड लाके पॉलीगैमी से निजात दिलाने की बात करते हो, उन्हीं भारतीय जनता पार्टी के हमारे प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री ने कहा था, जब CNRC का प्रोटेस्ट कर रही थी मुस्लिम महिलाएं सड़कों पे बैठ के ठंड में, उस वक्त कहा था कि मुस्लिम महिलाओं को चौराहों पर बिठा दिया है उनके मर्दों ने। ये लैंग्वेज है मुस्लिम महिलाओं के लिए एक भारतीय जनता पार्टी के मुख्यमंत्री की। शर्म आती है इस तरीके के अपमानजनक शब्द। मुस्लिम महिलाएं सही, लेकिन देश की महिलाएं हैं जिनके लिए इस तरह के अपशब्द इस्तेमाल किए जाते हैं। और ये भारतीय जनता पार्टी का एक नाटक है, यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड। उनको मालूम है कि हम कहां पर चोट करेंगे और कहां से आवाज आएगी, और उसके बाद क्योंकि चुनाव करीब है, ये एक तरीके का प्रोपेगेंडा है। क्या मैं पूछना चाहती हूँ, यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड लागू होने के बाद जो हाथरस में बेटी के साथ हुआ था, दलित बेटी के साथ, वो नहीं होगा। जो रायबरेली में हुआ था वो नहीं होगा। जो आजमगढ़ में बच्ची के साथ हुआ था कि वहां पर थाने में उसके साथ रेप होता है, वो नहीं होगा।
यास्मीन फारूकी जी भी one second no one second one at a time no 1 second can I please have the BJP right now? Yes, Mr. Keswan, yes,
I need uninterrupted time.
We also have Yasmin ji who's been very patiently waiting, but first I want a response from the BJP. Yeah,
AIMIM, just to call out his bluff. First thing is the minority budget has been increased by the BJP government many times and moderated, and the number of scholarship, please go and check and don't lie on national television, has been increased. Please remember that the great son of India, Abdul Kalam ji, was nominated by the NDA government for president, and he had a glorious term, and he's an inspiration for the youth. So don't talk about BJP not doing anything for the Muslims. They made a non-politician. We made a non-politician like Abdul Kalam ji, the president. Now coming back to this, they were again talking about, you should please tell these fearmongers and these people are trying to create division. In the judgment of the 2015 ABC versus State, the Supreme Court says, please, this is important, it says UCC remains an unaddressed constitutional expectations. We urge the government to take a decision on UCC to end the confusion over personal laws applicable to different communities. This is the Supreme Court. So this has been pretty much the observation and direction of the Supreme Court. And what is a secular country? These people are talking about secular term, where there is a clear separation between church and state, and in India it's clear separation between religion and state. So how can you have a constitution where the laws will be based on religion? Let me remind you of what Ambedkar ji said in terms of religion and laws. He said, I quote, I personally do not understand why religion should be given this vast expansive jurisdiction so as to cover the whole of life and prevent the legislature from encroaching. After all, what are we having liberty for? We are having this liberty to reform our social system full of iniquities and discrimination, which conflict with our fundamental rights.
You've made your point. I want to bring in Yasmin Farooqi ji as well. Can I bring in Yasmin Farooqi ji into the discussion? Yasmin ji, first of all, thank you for patiently listening to the discussion that we were having so far. You're one person who has worked within the community. You have worked within the community. We've spoken about multiple issues in the past as well. Politics aside, ma'am, shouldn't, after so many years, more than 7 decades after independence, we should have a common civil code under which polygamy, any kind of marriages which are under 18, any kind of regressive practices which are violative of right of women to equality under Indian Constitution, all of them should be outlawed. And I want to make one more point before you respond, ma'am, that it's one thing for the practice to be legally outlawed and it's another thing for it to be a social reality. Well, dowry is outlawed in this country. Dowry still exists. Child marriage is outlawed in this country. It still exists. But the law has taken that position. In the case of Muslim personal law, that position has not been taken. Yasmin ji, आपका मत चाहूंगी मैं इस पे.
Thank you so much. आपने मेरी खामोशी को सराहा. पहली बात तो मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ बोर्ड के बिहाफ पे मेरा कोई बात नहीं होती है. मैं पर्सनल बात समझ लीजिए या एक पॉलिटिकल उसकी नेशनल जनरल सेक्रेटरी हूँ STPI की. मैं एक सिंपल बात आपसे करना चाहती हूँ और इन सब से करना चाहती हूँ कि हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में किसी भी चीज़ को चेंज करने के लिए एक तरीक़ा है. पहली बात तो यह है जो मैं आपसे कहना चाहूँगी कि हमें ये पहली बात 3 चीज़ें हमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में दी गई हैं. एक ऐसा कानून है कि जो राज्य बनाएगा, दूसरा वो कानून है जो सेंटर से बनेगा, तीसरा वो कानून है जो कि दोनों मिलके बनाएंगे। अब पहली बात तो आप डिक्लेयर कर रहे हैं इस बात को कि हम तो कॉमन सिविल कोड लाएंगे। आप ऐसे कैसे बोल सकते हो? आप उन सीधे प्रोसीजर से पहले गुजरोगे। इसे कहते हैं गैस लाइट करना, कि आपने एक गैस लाइट दी है मुस्लिम्स को कि ये आपके लिए, ये जबकि आपके पास एक बहुत लेंदी मामला है, जिसे मैं बात मजहब पे नहीं करती हूँ, देखिए ना मैं उस धर्म पे बात करती हूँ। बहुत सारे हिंदू लॉ में चेंजेस आए हैं, मैं बिल्कुल इस बात को मानती हूँ। आप मुझे एक छोटे से बात पे मैं बात करना चाहूंगी कि हिंदू लॉ में लड़की बेटियों को बराबर का हक दिया गया है अब कानून ने, जो कि पहले नहीं था। आप एक देखिए, डॉक्टर से जब एक डॉक्टर ने दवा दी है और वो अगर अच्छी तरह सही चली गई है और वो इलाज सही हो गया है, तो हम दूसरा दवा देते हैं। आपने वो दवा दी, क्या आपने एनालिसिस किया कि पूरा बेटियों को हक मिला है आधा? क्योंकि एक चीज आपने वसीयत रख दी उसमें, और उस वसीयत के तहत क्या बच्चियों को, उन बेटियों को हिंदू लॉ में, क्रिश्चियन लॉ में बराबर का हक मिल रहा है। मैं जबकि मुस्लिम लॉ में तो 1/4 मिल रहा है शुरू से, चाहे वो दे रहे हैं नहीं दे रहे हैं। देखिए, बात होती है कानून बनाने और लागू करने की। आप खाप पंचायत की बात कर लो, वो आप
यास्मीन जी, एक इंटरजेक्शन। यास्मीन जी, आपने वन सेकंड। यास्मीन जी, एक सवाल है मेरा आपसे। आपने बोला एक बात होती है कानून बनाने की, दूसरा लागू करने की। एक सेकंड आदिल जी, जहां तक मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ की बात है यास्मीन जी, कानून बनाया भी नहीं गया है। आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रही हैं कि जहां तक बेटियों के बराबर के अधिकार की बात है, हिंदू पर्सनल लॉ की बात है, वहां पे बहुत बाद में ये परिवर्तन ही बहुत बाद में चेंज आया। लेकिन ये चेंज आया, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली आया, और आगे भी इसके लिए प्रयास होंगे। इसी तरह के प्रयास मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ में भी होनी चाहिए, उससे हमें कोई भी रुकावट या कोई भी परेशानी क्यों हो? यास्मीन जी,
अरे तो आप, हाँ, ऑलरेडी कानून है, बीवी का हिस्सा, बेटी का हिस्सा, सब कुछ कानून ऑलरेडी है। देखिए, जहां तक विरासत की बात करते हैं, आप अगर आगे आते हैं 4 बीवियों की, 3 बीवियों की, आजकल मर्डर जो हो रहे हैं वो ज्यादातर लिव इन रिलेशनशिप पे हो रहे हैं, कोई बीवियों को नहीं मार रहा। और आप पहले एनालिसिस करो ना बैठ के, कितने मुस्लिम
यास्मीन जी, मैं बस एक बात बोलूंगी, and I want to cut across to AIMIM and one second, आदिल जी, एक सेकंड, one second. There was a stand that the Muslim All India Muslim Personal Law Board had taken in the Supreme Court. यास्मीन जी, आपको भी याद दिलाऊंगी, जब 3 तलाक का मुद्दा चल रहा था, उनने सुप्रीम कोर्ट पे एफिडेविट पे कहा था that Muslim men will kill their wives if triple talaq does not exist. That was the archaic position that was taken in the Supreme Court of India on an affidavit. I have last few minutes on the show, Mr. C.R. Keswan, and then I want to bring in AIMIM and other guests as well. Mr. Keswan first.
First, I'm really surprised. While the
मेरी बात आपने पूरी नहीं सुनी है।
आपके पास वापस आ रही हूँ यास्मीन जी, आपके पास वापस आ रही हूँ।
Ma'am, let me kindly complete.
Yes.
There are so many grey areas in the prevailing personal laws that is being exploited against women of every religion. It's just not Muslims. When you see the Supreme Court judgments on Walamaton, or even as recent as the Uniform Civil Code and go, it's about all religions. Today, a Christian woman, she has to wait for more time for divorce than anybody else. Adoption rights are different for Hindus, but adoption rights for other religions, for the children who have been adopted, they don't have rights in other religions. So it's just not about one religion like these people are trying
all
to
religions, yes, all religions are going to be.
Yeah, so please let us understand that. The second most important thing we need to know is, see, when triple talaq happened, it was empowering the Muslim woman. And how long was it?
I have one second. One at a time. Yaस्मीन जी,
मैं आपसे उसकी बात नहीं कर रही।
आप थोड़ा मुझे बोलने दीजिए, बात कीजिए, जो भी आप।
यास्मीन जी, एक मिनट मैं आपके पास वापस आ रही हूँ।
मत बोलिए,
sir, 30 seconds to you, then I have to bring in another guest as well. 30 seconds.
All I'm saying is this is not about the false binary narrative of majority minority religion, one religion. This is about equality for all.
You made your point.
And gender justice rights. And let me complete.
30 seconds to you, then I have to bring in another guest.
Let me complete with what Ambedkar ji said. Ambedkar ji said that when the loyalty to a nation comes, everything else, even the slightest doubt when it comes to the loyalty of a nation, loyalty to religion, loyalty to language,
it has to be the nation and the constitution first. Can I have Yasmin Faruqi? Yasmin जी, 1 मिनट, फिर मैं दूसरे गेस्ट पर भी जाना चाहूंगी। यास्मीन जी, अपनी बात पूरी करिए।
देखिए, मैं सिर्फ एक ही बात कहना चाहती हूँ कि किसी भी चीज को चेंज करने के लिए आप एकदम से नहीं कह सकते कि हम ये चेंज लाएंगे। उसका एक प्रोसीजर है, उसका एक वो पूरी राज्य कैसे चलता है। आज अमेरिका में 50 स्टेट हैं और उन सबके संविधान अलग अलग हैं। यहाँ धर्म से नहीं चलती हैं चीजें, यहाँ कौन लोग किस तरह रहते हैं और रहना चाहते हैं उससे चीज चलती है, कानून उससे चलता है। आप बात अलग तरीके की करने लगते हैं।
समय की थोड़ी सी कमी है। आदिल हसन
आप ऐलान करते हैं कि हम बदलाव।
आपके पास भी आऊंगी, अंबर जी आपके पास आऊंगी। आदिल हसन प्लीज मेक योर पॉइंट।
मैम अभी उन्होंने कहा, अभी तेलंगाना में, आंध्रा में जो मुस्लिम रिजर्वेशन बैकवर्ड मुस्लिम को मिला वो बैरिस्टर असदुद्दीन ओवैसी साहब और अकबर ओवैसी साहब की कोशिश से 1 लाख बच्चियों को हम फ्री में किट देते हैं, स्कूल किट देते हैं, 18,000 बच्चे को फ्री पढ़ाते हैं। आपको नहीं पता है, आप चलिए वहां तेलंगाना, आपको नहीं पता है।
I have lost 1 minute on the show. Can I now have Amber Zaidi? Can I have a closing comment from you?
फ्री में पढ़ाई होती है।
One at a time.
अकबर साहब के
Can I have Amber Zaidi? Amber Zaidi, closing comments from you, please. Go ahead.
Yes, Anusha, I want to say one thing that everybody is saying, including starting from Asaduddin Owaisi to Yasmin Farooqi, everybody is saying that India is a diverse nation, and we should have personal laws based on those primitive laws based on religion and so on. So, and he also on Tuesday, Asaduddin Owaisi slammed Prime Minister Modi, saying India's PM, he doesn't understand Article 29, which is which ensures the interest of minorities, culture, and everything.
Okay.
So here I want to say that if UCC comes, nothing is going to happen to our diversity. We are going to be as diverse as ever.
And I want to reiterate that point, that with UCC, all religions are going to be affected, not just one religion. Amana Begum Ansari, last 30 seconds to you. Make your point as I close the debate, please. Amana Begum Ansari.
Criminal code, and nobody talks about why we don't have a Sharia when it comes to the criminal procedure.
Yes.
Why we don't have the law, अगर कोई चोरी करता है तो उसके हाथ काट दिए जाते हैं. It's only when it comes to the women right, we talk about the diversity, culture, Muslims, Islam, because we want to subjugate our women and want to keep them second-class citizens. That's my
All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. And like the last has not been said, when it comes to the Uniform Civil Code, this debate is also far from over, but because of the paucity of time, I thank all of you for joining us on the broadcast. The Law Commission is looking at it. If you have any view, you can share it with the Law Commission on their website. UCC, a constitutional promise that should be a reality at some point. We're slipping into a very short break. Up next, the political storm continues over Rahul Gandhi's US visit. After a Congress leader registers an FIR against BJP's Amit Malviya, the Saffron Party has hit back. More on the other side. Stay tuned.